It's still very much, as the Arsenal fans watching will know, in Arsenal's hands. However, for the first time, it is also in Manchester City's hands. Is this now Pep's title to lose, if I phrase it that way?
At one point this season, Arsenal looked untouchable. Top of the league, conceding just 20 goals, controlling big games without breaking a sweat.
They love to win. Ødegaard. And Rice again, what a header!
This wasn't a team scrambling for results. This was a team that looked like they belonged at the top.
It feels to me like Arsenal are more equipped, especially than my team, Liverpool, to win the Premier League this season the way it's going.
And City, dropping points to Chelsea, Brighton, Manchester United. That cold sense of inevitability, gone.
This is not a Man City team that we're used to seeing in previous seasons. I know last year they wasn't great. But again, this year, I don't think they've performed to the levels that Pep is used to his teams performing at.
For once, they were the ones looking over their shoulder. For Arsenal fans, it genuinely felt different, like the window wasn't just open, it was theirs to walk through. But windows don't stay open forever. City are winning again. The 3-0 against Fulham. The win at Liverpool. The machine is finding its rhythm.
That's the best way to play when you're chasing. I think you have to play to make them make a mistake or for them to slip or crack first.
And this weekend, they host Newcastle with a 65% chance of winning. If they do, 5 points becomes 2 overnight. We've seen this before. 2022/23. 8 points clear, City won 11 straight. 2023-24, City closed with 9 consecutive wins. Arsenal finished 2 points short. 2 points. The gap is tightening. The pressure is building. And the most uncomfortable question in English football is back on the table. Does Mikel Arteta have a Pep Guardiola problem again? Over the next few minutes, we're getting into the numbers, the momentum, and the psychology of what happens when a title race enters its final, brutal stretch. And whether this Arsenal squad is genuinely built different or about to walk into the same storm they faced twice before. We've seen this script before, and for Arsenal fans, it's haunting.
Listen, I've backed this team all the season. Can't back them no more.
In 2022-23, Arsenal built an 8-point lead at the top of the table. For months, they controlled the narrative, but when spring arrived, Manchester City shifted gears. 11 straight league wins. No noise, no drama, just relentless mechanical accumulation. By the time the run-in tightened, the gap had vanished, and the title followed City again. Then came 2023-24. Arsenal were sharper, more mature, more consistent, and still, City closed the season with 9 consecutive victories, finishing 2 points ahead, not because Arsenal collapsed, but because City accelerated. Guardiola himself would later call those spring runs almost robotic. April and May weren't months of anxiety for City, they were months of execution. That was the pattern, that was the machine. But here's what makes this season fundamentally different, and why the question carries far more weight now. City broke. In 2024-25, Manchester City didn't just lose the title race, they imploded. Their run of poor form included 5 consecutive losses, the first time that had happened in Guardiola's entire managerial career, and the worst sequence for the club since 2005-06. At one point, Guardiola himself stood in front of the cameras and said there was no chance of winning the title. This, from the manager who had won 6 of it. They finished 3rd. No Premier League, no Champions League, no silverware for the first time in 8 years. The machine had seized up. Now they've rebuilt. Key figures like Ederson, Kyle Walker, Ilkay Gundogan, and Kevin De Bruyne, over 1,500 games of combined experience, have all departed. New faces have arrived. Guardiola has reportedly taken more direct control of the dressing room, handpicking his captains for the first time in his career, trying to rebuild the unity that crumbled last season. The question is whether the soul of the machine has been restored, or whether City are still mid-rebuild. And while City were falling apart, Arsenal were quietly becoming something different. For the entirety of 2024, Arsenal didn't concede more than 2 goals in any single game. Across all 58 matches in all competitions, becoming only the 3rd Premier League side in history to accomplish that through an entire season. That isn't defensive fortune. That is structural discipline, drilled in game after game. William Saliba, Gabriel Magalhaes, Jurrien Timber, David Raya, they formed a defensive unit that made the league's hardest thing look routine. In possession, they spent just 9.8% of their total Premier League minutes trailing, the lowest share of any team in the division. They weren't a team clinging to leads. They were a team that barely found themselves in danger in the first place. Declan Rice created 96 chances across all competitions, leading all Arsenal players. Bukayo Saka led in shots on target and dribbles completed. Leandro Trossard topped the charts for goal involvements with 25 across the season. This wasn't a team carried by one superstar. The threat was distributed, rotated, and this season, 2025-26, they sit top of the Premier League with 58 points, 5 ahead of a Manchester City side that is still finding its new identity after one of the most turbulent rebuilds in recent Premier League history. For a while this season, Manchester City looked human. Not broken, not in decline, just slightly off the rhythm that made them unstoppable for years. Draws against Chelsea, Brighton, Tottenham. A 2-0 loss to Manchester United. A goalless draw at Sunderland, the kind of result that, in a Guardiola era, simply didn't happen. The machine was misfiring, and Arsenal, sitting 5 points clear, looked like they were finally going to make it stick. Then, City found their footing. Back-to-back wins over Wolves and Liverpool. Yes, Liverpool. Followed by a clinical 3-0 dismantling of Fulham. Suddenly, the pressing tightened. The build-up regained its fluency. The momentum swung back. And as City steadied themselves, Arsenal started showing the first cracks. The numbers are uncomfortable for Arsenal fans. In their last 5 league games, they've drawn 3-0-0 at Nottingham Forest, 1-1 at Brentford, and most recently 2-2 at Wolves, a game they led and should have closed. That's 5 points dropped from a winning position. Not dramatic collapses, no heavy defeats, just tight second halves, leads not being killed, games drifting when they should have been buried. This is how title races are actually lost, not in a single moment, but in an accumulation of moments where a team stops being ruthless. Now comes the number that matters. City host Newcastle on February 21st, a game where they're 65% favorites. If they win, that 5-point gap becomes 2 points. Arsenal's entire cushion gone in 90 minutes without them even playing. 2 points means no margin for error. 2 points means every match, including the North London Derby against Tottenham on February 22nd, feels like a final. 2 points means the media narrative shifts overnight. The questions change, the headlines change, the weight in the dressing room changes. And that's where Guardiola's teams have always been most dangerous. Not when they're chasing, when they sense the door creaking open. City have been here before, Arsenal haven't, not fully, not in April, not when it truly counts. The race is now real. This Arsenal side is not the same team from 2 seasons ago, and the evidence was supposed to prove it, until this past week quietly complicated that argument. Start with what Arteta built. Victor Gyökeres arrived in the summer to solve the problem that haunted every previous challenge. Not a single Arsenal player had scored more than 10 league goals in 2024, the first time in over a century. That's been fixed. Martin Zubimendi arrived alongside him, giving Declan Rice the freedom to roam higher, press harder, influence more. The backline remained elite, one of the lowest expected goals conceded in the division. The system was more complete than it had ever been. And for large parts of this season, it showed. Defensively compact, possession-based and unhurried. Big wins against Aston Villa, Liverpool, Manchester United. This wasn't a team chasing. This was a team that looked ready to finish the job. Then came Brentford. Then came Wolves. Against Brentford, Arsenal had just 0.6 expected goals, their third lowest in any Premier League game this season. They were sleepwalking. William Saliba was absent through illness. Kai Havertz was out with a hamstring injury. Arsenal didn't manage a single shot on target in the first half. Maduke's header gave them the lead. Brentford equalized from a long throw 10 minutes later. Arsenal have now dropped 21 points from winning positions this season, the joint most in a single campaign in the club's history. Then, 48 hours later, Wolves, leading 2-0. David Raya fumbles across. Tom Edoze's shot deflects off Calafiori. 2-2. 5 points dropped across 2 games, both from winning positions, without a single dominant performance. This is the uncomfortable truth. Arsenal aren't collapsing, but they're not being ruthless either. And in a title race, the difference between those two things is almost invisible, until it isn't. What makes this Arsenal different is still real. The structure is better. The squad is deeper. The belief is genuine. Arteta himself said after Brentford, "We have to be at our best every game and have the luck you need in games to conquer 3 points each week." That's not a manager panicking. That's a manager being honest about how fine the margins are. And they're fine. Arsenal still lead by 5 points. They still have the best defensive record. They still have Saka, Rice, Odegaard, and Gyökeres. They still have the experience of coming this close, twice, and staying standing. Can Arteta outthink the manager who shaped him? Can this squad hold their nerve when the pressure stops being theoretical and becomes real in real time? The gap is 5 points. The wounds are fresh. The belief is still there. Now we find out if it's earned or assumed.